Hello and welcome everybody. Welcome back to Comedian MTG. My name is Ian, and on today's episode we are breaking down my Shalai and Hallar list. We're going to be talking about Shalai and Hallar and its implications for the competitive EDH format. Now, if you like deck techs like this, make sure to hit like and subscribe as it helps out the channel a ton. Also, if you're feeling extra generous, check out patreon.com/comedianmtg. We have a lot of really cool stuff coming down the pipeline, especially when it comes to the later half of June, where I'm taking a few months to really focus on my content creation and specifically this channel. I have a lot of really cool projects coming up. I have a lot more time that I'm going to be able to devote to especially cEDH coaching. So all of those things are coming down the line, and make sure to be paying attention to the channel because I'm going to be talking about all of these things right here. Without any further ado, let's talk about this deck. So this is by far the list that I have been most excited about from March of the Machines / March of the Machines Commander. Now, this list is really interesting because we haven't really had a commander like this in a considerable amount of time that's in a bunch of different colors and like sneezes and goes infinite, basically. This one's really cool. So Shalai and Hallar, let's read the card. It's a flying vigilance 3/3 for 1 in Naya. And it says whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, Shalai and Hallar deals that much damage to target opponent. So the way this works is basically an infinite damage outlet in the command zone. And to be honest, I forgot until right now that it only targets opponents. So some of the more value focused creatures in here are really just burn in the command zone. But apart from that, let's take this one step at a time. So this deck is a combo deck, and basically this is like 3-color Heliod, right? In the sense that it has a bunch of 1-card combos and can really take advantage of those combos. Now, Shalai and Hallar, if you notice, there's not a lot of card advantage on these commanders, but what it does have is combo potential. So basically, my idea with this deck was that there's a bunch of different avenues that you can take it down. And the avenue that I decided to pursue was to take this as a really powerful Stax deck, because Shalai and Hallar, the combos that it pops off with, which I'm about to explain in a minute, break parity on a lot of very popular Stax pieces in the format right now. And to me, that screamed that those were something we should take advantage of and, you know, really take advantage of the fact that your opponents will be suffering under certain Stax pieces that are super crippling, and we can just combo off through them while also being able to advance our own game plan. So let's go into the combos with our commander. So the two that I am playing in this list are the Red Terror, which is a legendary 4-mana, 3 and a red for a 4/3. It's a Tyrannid, and it says whenever a red source you control, i.e. Shalai and Hallar, deals damage to one or more permanents and or players, put a 1/1 counter on the Red Terror. So if you're a diligent reader, what you're reading here is that anytime a red source deals damage, you play the Red Terror, you have your commander out, say you go to combat, and either the Red Terror, another red source, Shalai and Hallar, one of those permanents. So then you take one of those creatures, you go to combat, you hit your opponent. The Red Terror says, okay, a red source has dealt damage to my opponents. I'm going to put a 1/1 counter on the Red Terror. But Shalai and Hallar says, oh, hey, nice job putting a counter on there. I'm going to do a damage to an opponent. The Red Terror says, hey, congratulations, you've done another damage. Here's a free counter. And what happens is that creates a cycle where you deal a damage to your opponents, you put a counter on the terror, opponent, terror, opponent, terror, opponent, terror, boom, a player dies, and you go infinite there. The other combo is with Heliod Suncrowned. So what this says is an indestructible 5/5. As long as your devotion to white is less than 5, it isn't a creature, not relevant for the combo. Whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. Here we go. And another target creature gains lifelink until the end of the turn. So, say you have Shalai and Hallar out, and you have Heliod. You go, hey, Heliod, boom, 1 in a white, I'm going to give Shalai and Hallar lifelink until the end of turn. I'm going to hit my opponent in the face with my commander. Okay, Heliod says, hey, nice job, you gained us some life. Boom, put a 1/1 counter on your commander. Then Shalai and Hallar says, hey, thanks for the 1/1 counter. Boom, damage to the face. It's lifelink, though, because Heliod gave your commander lifelink until the end of turn. And thus, once again, just like with the Red Terror, infinite damage being able to create through that loop. Those are our two combos. Now, there is a third one of these that does exist, and I'm going to go over here to the considering board. As you can see, there's a big considering board I have for this deck because there's so many cool cards that put counters on a bunch of stuff, and I think there's a lot of playable ones that are just free value. But there's a bunch of counters. So the other one is over here, and it's called War Elemental. And War Elemental says the same thing. Whenever damage is dealt to an opponent, put that many 1/1 counters on War Elemental. And the reason I'm not playing War Elemental is for a couple different ones. First of all, the line of text that says when it comes in, sacrifice it unless an opponent was dealt damage this turn. Now, the reason I don't like this is because if you noticed, the verbiage from a lot of the combos that I just mentioned was that you have to go to combat with Shalai and Hallar to be the easiest way to proc the combo, to be able to make the combo go off. But War Elemental will come in and say, okay, but if you play me on main phase 1 and you don't have some sort of burn effect, I just die. Which sucks because you want to be able to play your combo, go to combat, hit your opponent, go infinite, right? But War Elemental has this bit of awkwardness. Now, we are actually playing a bunch of anti-enter the battlefield effect creatures in this deck, in my version of this list. The reason, even with that potential, I don't want to play War Elemental is because of the triple red cost. I think it's very expensive. It's the hardest one of our combo pieces to tutor in the deck. I just think that it has so many things going against it that I don't think it's worth the slot inclusion, and I'd rather just focus on tutoring up my other two combo pieces. The other combo that you could potentially play, and the reason I'm not playing this combo is because of I wanted to play the anti-artifact effects, but you can also play Emil plus Dockside, which is a familiar combo to most people who play cEDH nowadays. But you will notice that our commander is not infinite mana outlet. But luckily, Emil's ability that everyone often forgets about is the fact that whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you can pay hybrid green-white mana and put a 1/1 counter on something, or 2 if it's a unicorn. So what you can do is you can flicker your Dockside infinitely, create infinite treasures, and then start putting +1/+1 counters on your Dockside to be able to, with your commander, shoot everyone down, right? So that is the other potential combo in this deck, and as I said, I have omitted that combo because I am hoping to play anti-artifact Stax pieces in my deck. Another combo you could potentially go for, and once again, this commander, as I mentioned at the start of this video, like you sneeze, it combos. The Ivy Lane Denizen Scurry Oak combo, which is like sort of this old commander combo. Basically, what happens is this guy says whenever a green creature comes in, you put a counter on something, so the Scurry Oak puts a 1/1 squirrel whenever you put a 1/1 counter on it. So you basically have a green creature come in, put the thing here, a squirrel comes in, triggers this again, makes a counter, and then obviously with your commander, be able to go off. I didn't want 3-piece combos in the deck, basically. We already have, combos that are just 1 card plus your commander win the game, and the card quality on Scurry Oak and Denizen weren't high enough that I was comfortable playing them. So we've gone over the main win conditions of the deck as far as combos. The other main win condition that I will just mention here is just 7 mana Elesh Norn. Sometimes you just got to kill your opponents by beating the crap out of them, and that's what Elesh Norn Grand Cenobite does. So it's just straight up a murder machine. And there's some other little intricacies that we can talk about here as far as like things that can be win conditions in the deck, but these are the main ones. And then let's go, I think, just by card category and like talk about the important cards, right? Invasion of Ikoria, brand new battle from the new March of the Machine set. Fantastic. We have single creatures that win the game with our commander, so obviously we want to play all the creature tutors we can. Rather self-explanatory there. Allosaurus Shepherd is a card that I am traditionally not very high on, but because of all the green non-creatures that we have in the deck, right? One of the best parts of playing a creature combo deck is the fact that you can basically, not worry about most counter spells in the format actually being able to hit your combo, but I want my tutors to also be protected. So my Invasion of Ikorias, my Eldritch Evolutions, my Finale of Devastations, eventually my Time of Needs, my Worldly Tutor, my Court of Calling, my Elidomine's Call, all of these tutors are super, super important for our deck to work, our survival as well. So it's really important that these permanents basically get to resolve. So that's kind of one of the reasons that that we are playing Allosaurus Shepherd when traditionally, I'm not very high on the card. We have our Mana Dork package here: Arbor Elf, Absence Pilgrim, Bird's Paradise, Elvish Mystic, Findhorn, Llanowar Elves, classic Mana Dorks. We have our Ragavan, and as I mentioned, we're on a decent amount of artifact hate, but I still think Ragavan's worth it, especially because it's also just kind of a card advantage engine in a sense, where you're exiling top card to your opponent's decks and getting stuff off of that. And then we have Mother and Giver and Sylvan Safekeeper, all as ways to protect our creature combos. Because if we're going to win with creature combos, spot removal, bounce effects, those are all the things that are going to mess up our combos, and I want every way to protect them. I was also thinking today that I could be playing Skrelv as well as another way to perpetuate this effect, and that's going to be one of those cards that I am looking at as far as like, does it make it into the deck, does it not make it into the deck, and doing the balances as they come. One big side of Skrelv is the fact that it is an artifact creature, so its abilities actually do get shut off by Oof, Stony Silence, and Null Rod. Okay, so let's talk about, before we go farther into the creatures, there's like one main avenue of stacks that this deck is going for, or two branching avenues, I should say. One of them being anti-artifact effect, so things like Collector Oof. We have down here, our Null Rods, basically shutting off all activated abilities of artifacts. We have our Stony Silence as well, but also, some tempo-y pieces like Root Maze. We have Deafening Silence as a completely independent stacks piece. We have Rest in Peace to hate on graveyards. As you're probably noticing, definitely a good amount of stacks in here. And then we have our anti-enter the battlefield effect. So things that stop creatures entering the battlefield, shutting off your Thassa's Oracles, shutting off your opponent's Dockside Extortionists, really stopping all of the value that enter the battlefield effects have in the format. And there's a lot of really powerful ones, Spellseeker as well. Thoracle and Dockside being shut off is really, really big. So these are really important effects to have. So we have our Torpor Orb, as we just saw. We have Hushbringer, which not only stops the end of the battlefields, but stops dying triggers as well. So shutting down things like Protean Hulk strategies, stuff like that. We have our Hushwing Griff, which is the flash flying version. And then there's also Ducat Honor Guard, which we are not playing, but it's a very defendable card and could easily be slotted in here. For more graveyard hate, we have the Soulless Jailer, great new pickup from Phyrexia All Will Be One. And we have only one sphere effect, which is Thalia. Normally we could play like a Glow Rider or a Vryn Wingmare or a Thorn of the Amethyst. I'm only playing one just because of the fact that we want to make our creature tutors as efficient as possible. We're playing these 5 sorceries. We have our 1 battle, 10 instants, and some artifacts here. So I don't want to completely stacks out non-creature things, but it's nice to have Thalia just as like a really solid tempo piece that can just help to stop your Storm opponents from popping off. Then we also have things to stop activated abilities of non-artifacts. So we have our Phyrexian Revoker here, great at naming things like Kinnan and Thrasios and Najeela or Captain Sisse or any of those crazy permanents that your opponents have that are going to start messing you up. And then we have Linvala, which does that for everybody. You don't have to name something specific. You just say Linvala's here, stop doing that. Obviously we'd love to play Drana on Linvala, but that's not in our colors. And our one piece of search hate is the Aven Mindcensor. And Mindcensor is a great card. We could technically be playing Leonin Arbiter in this deck, but Leonin Arbiter affects way too many of our tutors, and we actually do play a decent amount of tutors in the deck, so I'd rather not hit that. Back to just going... Oh, and I can't believe I almost forgot. Drannith Magistrate. One of the best stacks pieces for Commander of all time. Shutting out your opponent's commanders, shutting off graveyard strategies like Underworld Breach, shutting off casting things from exile, just a stupid good card, and it's asymmetrical. So, yeah, Drannith Magistrate feels like it should go without saying. Card's insane. Back to the 2-drops, we have Archivist of Ogma. I know people are up and down on this card. I think it's insane. I love how much card draw it provides. I feel like it's just, 2 mana investment, put it on the battlefield, usually draw 5 or 6 cards a game off of it at minimum. I'm very happy every time I play Archivist. Grand Abolisher helps to lock down the board, saying, hey, I'm going to go for my combo this turn. You cannot mess with what I'm doing. We have effects that put creatures right on the battlefield, so you have that ability to sometimes really get your opponents when they're like, oh, he's probably just about to go get a Collector Roof, whatever, like I can play around not having artifacts, and then you get a Grand Abolisher, your opponents are completely shut out, and you go for your combo. It's just a powerful card. It's always a card you got to respect, very strong. And then Catilda here, as a sort of a late game engine in this deck, I guess, because it's a mana dork, right? Which is, it's not the most efficient mana dork, but it also, you know, does some cute stuff like turning your Dranith and your Liberator and your Grand Abolisher. It turns them all into mana rocks, which is kind of cute, or I guess mana dorks per se. But also it's the fact that it has that activated ability for 6 mana if you start, like, because I mentioned you don't have card advantage in the command zone, so if you start flooding out in the late game, suddenly like buff all your creatures and deal like 5 or 6 damage directly to each opponent, or you know, target opponent, is not bad at all. So yeah, like if a Staxy board state is happening, I will happily pay 6 mana to grow all of my creatures and like dome somebody for 5. That seems really, really solid. And the fact that it's repeatable, so you can do it every single turn. There's actually a couple cards in the deck that do that as well. We have Shalai, which is great because it protects all of your creatures by giving them all hexproof, apart from Shalai itself, and then also has that ability to just dump some mana into it and buff all your creatures. And then we're also playing Gavany Township in the land slot, which does the same thing, just counters on, deal direct damage to your opponents, helps with the late game. As I mentioned, your commander does not provide natural card advantage, so it's definitely a good way to advance your board state there. Moving up, we have 2, I guess, cute cards here, which I'm not sure if they're worth the inclusion, but I'm playing them right now. Previously, I know in earlier versions of this deck, I had thought that these cards allowed you to target, or Shalai and Hallar had allowed you to target any target with whenever you put a counter on stuff. So it was a little bit better in that light, but you know, these are 2 cards, like, everyone's seen a good Ashai game, and the idea that like anytime your opponents or any player are casting a spell, you have this giant threat that's hitting the board, and your commander is slowly like chipping down life totals. As I said, these might be too cute. I'm a little afraid that they are too cute. But the hope is that these are just those sort of late game clocks that just get your opponents dead. Professional Facebreaker, I feel like a lot of people would be confused about this card in a collector oof deck, but the ability to sacrifice a treasure and exile the top card of your library in a deck where, once again, your commander does not have innate card advantage. So being able to hit your opponents and then have an impulse draw version of Tymna's ability is still really good, in my opinion. If you're playing Naya and you're able to just go like, okay, well, first of all, if you don't have your Collector Oof or Stony or Null Rod on the battlefield, or your Brute Maze, then Facebreaker is just getting you treasure and then allowing you to play more Stax pieces. And then if you are locked out of activated abilities of artifacts, then you just use Facebreaker's ability and you just give yourself card advantage. And, you know, once again, we don't have card advantage in the command zone. You take what you can get, and I think Facebreaker is more than fine at just doing that. I play it in Jetmir for the same reason. You just turn it into quasi card draw in those colors. Ranger Captain, fantastic card, one of the best cards in the format. Gets a thing, gets a Ragavan, gets a Sylvan Safekeeper, gets any of your mana dorks, gets Esper Sentinel for card advantage, and then is just like, this card's so stupid. It's so good. Sanctum Prelate, if you can play this in a Stax deck, play it. If you feel like you play enough creatures, this is a 40 creature deck, right? I feel like we play enough creatures, and the CMC of our non-creatures is flexible. There's a lot of X spells and things like that in the deck, so definitely happy to play it. Super solid Stax piece. It just shuts down so many things. Anytime I'm playing a Stax commander in these colors and I don't have, you know, a lot of natural card advantage, I'm playing this package here. The Yisan, Sisay, Delsum, Toski, Orin Frostfang. These are your ways that you're drawing in these colors. Yisan is just putting things on the battlefield. Like, verse 1, put a Safekeeper in. Verse 2, you can put a Bloom Tender, you can put in a Collector Roof, you can put in a Hushbringer. Any of the relevant Stax pieces you need, your Soulless Jailer, any of that stuff, boom, right on the battlefield. Sisay gets you insane cards, gets you Gaia's Cradle, gets you your combo pieces, the Red Terror, gets you Heliod, gets you Elishnorn, like an insane amount of stuff that Sisay can get you. Obviously, Yisan can get you your combo pieces too, but it takes a while. Delsum, you know, it's a Tymna-like effect. You're hitting your opponents, you're drawing 3 cards, right? Hopefully, if you're hitting all of them. Toski is one of the best green card draw pieces ever. You know, anytime you hit your opponent, you're drawing a card. Orin Frostfang, same thing, gives your creatures Death Touch, does the same thing. You know, these pieces are all, in my opinion, if you're playing these like green, white, red, you know, green, white, X Stax decks that don't have a lot of card advantage, you slam all these pieces in because they just turn the game in your favor so quickly. And as I mentioned earlier, Elishnorn, it's just a finisher. It's a win con. Card's stupid good. Over here, the sorceries, we have tutors for our win conditions, tutors for our win condition, tutor for our win condition. Time of need, not one that you normally play, but both of our win conditions with our commanders happen to be legendary creatures. So boom, slap a time of need in the deck. Shadow Skull, it's a land, but it's also a removal spell. Great. And Winds of Abandon, it's a card that if you're playing some of these grindier, you know, Stax decks, the board state that you want is going to mean that you don't want to just wipe the board generically, because you have a lot of creature Stax effects. So Winds of Abandon, boom, overload it, kill all of your opponent's boards, beat them to death, right? It's a great card. And also stops creature combos, all that stuff. So, and, you know, I think there's been a lot of conversation about this card. It's just really solid, and people's ability to get a basic land off of it gets highly, 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 highly overestimated. I find that, you know, at max people have like 3, and, you know, the deck that I've seen get the most lands off of Winds of Abandon is a Winota. But like, if you're Winds of Abandoning a Winota's board state, I will give them as many basic lands as they could possibly want. Enlightened Tutor is really cool in this deck because Heliod is a creature, but it's also an enchantment. So boom, gets you that, but it also can get you your Stax pieces that are really important for this matchup. It can get you a Survival of the Fittest if you need to be able to continually get your card advantage and stuff like that. It's very good here. March is a card I have been growing more and more in love with as I'm playing more of these decks. It's just so flexible. It hits anything. And by that I mean artifact, creature, or enchantment, but those are 99% of the relevant things are those. So, you know, it stops the creature combo, it stops the underworld breach, it stops all of that stuff that is a pain, it stops the Stax piece that is holding you out of this game. March is so flexible. I play Swords and Path in a lot of these decks. Sometimes you need your creature removal, simple as that. Silence, broken card, very good. Worldly Tutor gets your combo, gets your combo, gets your combo, and then SWAT. You know, we're in a red deck, we're going to play our commander a decent amount of the time. You get some free interaction, it's great. You know, sometimes there's a lot of conversations about like what artifact acceleration pieces do you play if you're playing a deck that's very heavy on Null Rod, Stony Silence effects. I usually tend to play Soul Ring because it's kind of free. If it gets shut off by a Null Rod, I'm super happy about that. If I have to go like land, Soul Ring, Null Rod, I'm still happy with that play pattern. And Mox Diamond I'm keeping because we're already playing like 30 lands in the deck, and it sometimes the little bit of value it gives you in the early game is really good. Chromox I tend to lean away from just because you're usually throwing away a piece that you really want in a deck like this. You're throwing away some valuable Stax piece, some card advantage engine. It's just a lot. And then I don't want to play Mana Crypt because I don't want Mana Crypt to kill me, and especially kill me if I can't even tap it for mana. And some other enchantments we haven't talked about. Sylvan Library. I know there's people who are hot on this card, people who are cold on this card. I still think Sylvan Library is a very, very powerful card. I still will play it in many of my decks, and I still will be happy to win because I'm drawing 2 extra cards every turn, or drawing 1 extra card and then putting my cards back so that I can fetch and clear the top of my library and do like brainstorm fetch loops. Sylvan Library is still way too good in my opinion to stop playing, but I know there are people who have their opinions on this card. And then Touch of Spirit Realm is solid. You know, it gets around effects that stop you from casting spells in your turn, right? It gets around Grand Abolisher, it gets around, you know, Rule of Law effects, all of those things, and then also you just play it and exile some stuff, and it's a super flexible card. Not too many crazy other things to mention in the lands here. We have Boseiju, obviously very solid land. Iganjo as well. We have enough white permanents in this deck that I felt comfortable running 2 of those basic land slot cards, and then we have our 1 colorless land, if you don't count gemstones, with the Gavany Township, and we mentioned that as just like a late game engine. Yeah, and that's the deck as it sits right now. I have it sleeved up and ready to go. I'm going to be playing it at Magic Fest Minneapolis this weekend, and gonna get some few reps in with it, see how it goes. I'm very excited about a Stax deck that can break parity on some of the most powerful Stax effects in the format, like the fact that it can get around Enter the Battlefield hate, it can get around you know, Rule of Law effects, it can get around Curse Totem, it can get around Null Rod. It's kind of crazy how many things these combos get around, especially being 1-card combos. And I think that in itself is a lot of potential. And I hear this card compared to Rocco a lot. I think they're very different beasts. I think Rocco is much more of your like your pivot combo deck, your toolbox deck, right? Rocco's trying to do a bunch of different things by casting Rocco, but the demand in that deck is that you play a lot of things that'll generate mana for Rocco, where Shalai and Hallar, you can just curve out by going like turn 1, thing to protect your Stax piece, turn 2, Stax piece, turn 3, you know, a different Stax piece or advantage engine. Then turn 4, play your commander. Turn 5, play the combo piece with multiple pieces of protection and win the game. And meanwhile, your opponents are staxed out while you're doing that. And the best part is, because the way this commander works, you know, a lot of the time with Stax decks, you lose because you lock out the board for a little amount of time, but then you can't turn the corner. And this deck just turns the corner super instantly. Like, it just goes 1 card plus my commander, boom, you're dead. That's super solid, and it's not something a lot of Stax decks can boast. Now, I know there is talk about playing this more as like a tempo deck. I was talking with Mike Sad from Playing with Power a little bit about how he's more interested in the Dockside Emil version of this deck, playing a few less Stax pieces, and obviously different ones than I'm playing, and having it be more of a tempo deck, which is understandable and something I explored a little bit. But for me, the ability to break parity on all of these Stax pieces that I just mentioned is this deck's specialty. I don't want to be playing this deck in a way that I think it's like maybe a worse version of a different deck. I want to bring out the strengths of this commander and this combo with these commanders. And in my opinion, the strengths of this commander is how easy it is to combo and how resistant to Stax pieces that combo is. And so for me, playing a bunch of really, really powerful Stax pieces that the format is not really great at handling, and then having these insta-kill buttons with your commander just ready to go, I think that's enough of a sell that I say, hey, this commander's awesome, let's make it happen, and build it this specific way. But as you guys saw earlier in the video, I have 99 cards in the considering board. I think there's a lot of different ways to build this commander. You know, a lot of these definitely are like some cute, you know, 1/1 counter value engine cards, right? And not all of these are really super viable and super gonna progress you to winning the game, but there's a lot of different ways to build the deck. There's even like ways to build this deck so that you're playing multiple layered persist combos, so that, you know, every time you have a -1 and a +1 counter, those cancel out. So when you infinitely sacrifice persist creatures, that will make Shalai and Hallar combo off. There's a lot of different ways to build this commander. This is the way for sure that I am the most excited about, but I think there's just so much potential, and that makes me super happy. It's a really, really cool card. When you build your Shalai and Hallar deck, make sure to think about using our affiliate link in the description down below and buy some Dragonshield sleeves to be able to sleeve up your deck, which is, I know what I'm going to be using to sleeve my decks, because I use Dragonshield sleeves to sleeve all of my decks. And then maybe while you're playing this deck, you might want to bring it to one of the future Monarch events. So Monarch is I'm an ambassador for Monarch Media. I am going to be going to a lot of their events, being talk about them here on this channel, and I'm going to be helping to sculpt those events to be really solid competitive EDH events with the help of the team over at Monarch Events. And really excited to see that they are bouncing back from taking a bit of a hiatus at the end of last year post Oktoberfest. They have a lot of cool stuff coming up in the pipeline, down the pipeline, and really excited to see what they do next, and definitely will be letting you all know about any opportunities that'll be coming your way with those. But apart from those two, I just want to say thank you all for watching this video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Leave comments down below. What versions of this deck do you think is the best? I know I clearly have my version of this archetype that I think is the best way to build it, but I'm curious, do you in the audience think you maybe have a stronger way to build this archetype? Are there things that I'm missing and that are super pivotal to these combos? Are there little combo pieces that I've completely ignored? Are there Stax pieces that you think I should be playing that's crazy or not in this list? The list will be in the description below, and I'd love to hear the comments on this video. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to hit like and subscribe, and if you're feeling generous, check out that Patreon. But thank you from the bottom of my heart, everybody. It's been awesome, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.
I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gonna feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me for granted and you know I'm leaving. I'ma take what's mine with the webs I'm weaving. I could take this crowd from seeing to believing. Got a taste for blood